What do religious people mean when they say they know about God? Well, some might claim that knowing God cannot be any different from knowing anything else. We might know God as we know our own mothers or fathers, through observing them daily and interacting with their characters. Others might claim that this is impossible, since we cannot see or interact with God directly. Therefore, he must be known in much more mystical terms. Some might claim that we simply cannot know God at all, as he is beyond knowing. Since God created the world, perhaps we can begin to understand him through observing his creation. Others may disagree, stating that God must reveal himself to us, otherwise his transcendence is compromised. However, the opposition between these views might not be as clear-cut as we assume. I will evaluate each approach separately, then point out the similarities between the two views, and finally show how the most likely scenario in knowing God can be found somewhere between the two. Thomas Aquinas, in his Summa Theologica, argues that we can understand God because we can see how he created the world. He is omnipresent within his creation, and we can deduce his attributes from the world around us. We do this using our reason, which itself is also a God-given gift, given to humans for this exact purpose. In keeping with the Roman Catholic Church, Aquinas looked to the Bible for guidance. In Romans, St. Paul stated that we can know about God by perceiving him in the things which have been made. This is not dissimilar to Aquinas' design argument, and it is useful to make synoptic links such as these in your writing. The Bible emphasizes that each person has imprinted upon them the desire and capacity to know God. John Calvin defines this as a semen religionis, or sensus divinitas, a sense or seed of the divine. Evaluating this approach, it has many likable aspects. It is intuitive to use our reason to try and know God, and also by using our senses, as he is both around us and within us. Moreover, it emphasizes a God which wants to have a relationship with his creation by allowing us to access him at all times, whilst maintaining an epistemic distance. There are also issues with this approach, however, one of them being the subjectivity and unreliability of reason itself. Humans may reason in different ways and come to different conclusions about God. Many people might even claim reason has led them away from God, encouraging atheism rather than conversion or increased faith. Moreover, giving humans the power to be able to access and talk about God in this way might diminish his own greatness and power. Martin Luther claimed reason to be the devil's whore, entirely clouded by sin. The fall has tainted humans and preventing us from accessing God in the direct and pure method Aquinas suggests. He suggests that only God can make himself known to us, as we are incapable of knowing him through our own means. Luther's focus in the Bible is in Psalm 19:1, which states that the heavens declare the glory of God, pointing toward direct revelation and religious experience as our only means of accessing him. We might make another synoptic link here of examples of religious experiences, often being the strongest evidence for God in its conversion of so many. Once again, we can evaluate this approach, and there are some clear issues with the idea of revelation. David Hume's essay on miracles would make a strong argument against the existence of miracles, since we have no present-day experience of them. Moreover, God is not presented as omnibenevolent if he only chooses to reveal himself to some and not others. The Barth-Brunner debate of 1934 discusses these issues in more detail. Karl Barth criticized natural theology for assuming that God can in some way relate to our world, when he is so radically different and separate from it. He uses an analogy of trying to know God using reason as like trying to pour Niagara Falls into a milk jug. It cannot be done. We cannot even attempt to capture God's greatness. Making a synoptic link to language, we could include Pseudo-Dionysius' Via Negativa, showing how God can never be spoken of in positive terms as he is beyond language. Barth makes a strong case for God's transcendence, emphasizing the hubris of humans to even attempt to know him. Where this argument gets most interesting is when we evaluate the concept of revealed knowledge a little further. Whilst Kant claims that God cannot ever be perceived or considered in empirical terms, revelation seems to suggest that he is in some way lowering himself to our realm just to make himself known. It is a form of hubris in its own right to claim that God would do such a thing for us, and how would he ever be able to reduce himself to anything that can be empirically observed anyway? Boethius argues that God cannot be subject to his own creation, including time and space. Therefore, logically, revelation does not make much sense. Perhaps we might begin to favour natural theology once more, as at least it still upholds God's own transcendence. It is, as Emil Brunner would suggest, the milk jug's equivalent of knowledge. We can still know a small amount about God by observing his creation, and whilst it isn't much, it is still something. Bonaventura in the 13th century arguably comes up with the most satisfying solution to this problem. He claims that we must see God through our eye of flesh, our eye of reason, and our eye of contemplation. What he means by this is that we must attempt to know God in all ways available to us, through empiricism, through reason, and also through our own faith. Whilst it still might not tell us much, this is inevitable considering God's greatness, but it at least might take us one step closer to knowing God than before.